Good evening, gospel revolutionaries around the world. This is Michael Littleborn Williams coming to you from the bonus room above the apartment below. Anyway, we made it. Goodness gracious, I got to the last minute. I was so ready, and then I realized that some of my notes that I had was on my phone. It's like I can't use those. We have been really busy listening. We've been listening to people from Global Grace, people that imply that they have come out of that Bible school, and we've been, of course, exploring Mirror Bible. So what we want to do is focus in right now. Now, these are going to link together when we go into Romans chapter 8. And you'll see it as we begin to go through this. I'm not going to delay. I'm not going to try to explain James anymore. James says what he says, and I just have to tell you that Paul really made his open statements that he disagreed with James, and we do too. We disagree with James that wisdom is something you got to ask for. We're totally convinced that wisdom is part of the imputed work of the cross. Wisdom, righteousness, sanctification, and redemption, which some people are still seeking for sanctification so they can become something they're not. That's an insult to the work of the cross. That's just got to say it like it is. Anything that adds to or takes away from the work of the cross is simply an insult to the work of the cross. We do our best, and I tell you what, we research constantly, and I do mean constantly. This is going on all the time with more than myself and Daniel and others around the planet. We are looking into these matters. We are researching them according to the scriptures. And if we can find an answer in the scriptures, we let you know what we have found. We found tremendous things about the birth of Christ in Micah chapter 4 and chapter 5. Very powerful things. You can listen to the shows that we have coming out, and you're going to have your mind blown, just like that. And we found out things about Mary. Micah talks about Mary and gives us some insight that the church world has never looked at. That's what happens when you stick with the scriptures. You get to find out things you never knew before. So James is this character who kind of inserted himself into the church. After the resurrection of Christ, he is there basically because he is the brother of Christ and therefore the natural inheritor to the throne of David, as Christ was, as his father was, James's father was. And Jesus would have been discredited because of that, and also James would have been also. But because of the birth lineage that was through the Spirit, Jesus was requalified by the very scriptures that disqualified him from inheriting the throne. He also was an inheritor through Mary's lineage all the way back to David also. It's good stuff, but if you give up on the scriptures, you're not going to know anything. You're just going to be spiritual. And we have enough spiritual. Jesus, help us, Jesus. Deliver us from spiritual people, Jesus. We need real people that know real things and understand the gospel, the good news. And there is plenty of good news going around. Now we're going to focus specifically on James, where Francois gets the term mirror from. It explodes from there, but there's only two places that the word glass, it shows up as glass. The word mirror is not in the Bible. But it shows up as the word glass. But what I want to show you tonight is the run-up to this, because you see, if you don't read in context, you can place your own assumptions on what you're supposed to be seeing in this mirror. Now, what Francois sees is a reflection all the way back to Adam. I want to show you that even though I can't show you that James taught that the whole world was redeemed, as I teach, as Paul taught, as Apollos taught, I can't show you that in the book of James. I think James made it very clear that he thought that salvation was mainly, if not exclusively, for the Jews. I can't tell you what he believed. I can just tell you he never taught what Paul taught about the redemption of the world, the whole world. But he did believe in the work of the cross. That is indeed, he did believe that. So, but I want to show you, let James speak for himself about what you're supposed to be seeing in this mirror. You shouldn't let somebody else take a verse out of context and tell you what you're supposed to be seeing in this mirror. You should let James explain it. The guy who said it. The only other place it shows up in is 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 15. And Paul's talking about looking through a glass darkly. Boy, we could go into that real quick, but we're not going to, because I always get in trouble with time. So we're going to start with James 1:18. And here is how the whole subject of this thing about a mirror or a glass, as is in the King James, mirror, it can be translated mirror, but in 1 Corinthians it's glass, because he's talking about looking through, not looking and getting a reflection from. It's obvious that James's connotation of using the word is that of a reflection of sorts. There is no doubt about that. But let's see what that reflection is supposed to be showing you. We're not going to get into the minutia about the entire section of verses here, but I want to start out in verse 18, and then we are going to go down through verse 24. But we're going to skip actually down instead of going through all these because we just don't have the time. Feel welcome. We teach the entire book of James, verse by verse, and we let James speak for himself. Be prepared. He don't like rich people. James doesn't like rich people. But a man with a vow of poverty probably wouldn't like rich people at all. But listen to what even James says. Of his own will begat he us. That's the important part of this. Of his own will begat he us. Now, the word begat is apokoio. Apokoio. I'm all the time embarrassing myself trying to pronounce this Greek, but I do try. Apokoio. It's close to that anyway. And it literally means to breed. That's what the word begat means. Now, there is something that Adam never was. Adam was never begotten. Adam was never begat. He was never begotten. He was none of those. He was a creation. Adam was a creation. You are not a creation. You're not created in the image of God. You are begotten of God. Please listen. You are not in the image of God as Adam was. You have through Christ been begotten of God. Am I getting intense? I feel intense. I think it's a shame that these simple verses have so destroyed the work of the cross. And I'm telling you, we've gone through and looked at this, and if you hear Francois, he is Jesus, 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 Jesus. But if you read his Bible, Jesus is simply a revealer. He didn't accomplish anything, but the rhetoric is off the chain. And if you also listen to Global Grace, it's also off the chain. Jesus, 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 Jesus. But it's almost like they say it repetitively to distract you from what they teach. Don't look on the right. There's not there's not dangling fingers over here. Adam was not begotten of God. He was created by God and was created in the image of God. You are not in the image of God. You're the very image of Christ, who was begotten of God. Yes, we put effort into this. Yes, we try our best because folks are being led in a direction that leaves Jesus as nothing more than a footnote. And I can tell you, you can search Mirror Bible. Folks, I've got my own copy right here, signed and autographed by two wonderful people. Again. Please don't take this that I am trying to insult Francois or his beautiful wife or his family or anybody. These are some of the most wonderful people on the earth. I'm telling you, I've had a brief encounter, but I have to tell you it was absolutely wonderful. And I hope that they would say the same thing about me. We did have a great time together. I burnt the ribs, but we had a very good time together. Now, so it's important, the difference between being created and the difference between being begotten. Now, of his own will begat he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creation. We were begotten out of creation. We were birthed out of creation. You're not a part of creation. You are the new creation. You're not a part of the old creation at all. And they have whitewashed the cross to the point to where that you can't tell Adam from Jesus. There's a difference between Adam and Jesus. There's a huge difference between Adam and Jesus. I like all those little hearts that are crawling up the side of my screen right here. Thank you. Because it's truth, folks. There should be millions of hearts going up right now because you get to know what billions of people on this earth never knew. You are not created in the image of God. You are not a creation like Adam was. You've been birthed. You are a begotten Son of God who has manifested when Christ himself manifested. I'm trying so hard not to get too excited because I know how it comes off and I don't like it myself. So now, what is this word creatures? You're the first begotten of his creatures. And it's literally plural there. And it means an original formation. Folks, you've been begotten out of the original formation. You've been, and it means a created thing. You're not a created thing. So what do you see in the mirror? I can tell you one thing for sure. Even James, regardless of what you think that he believed or didn't believe, the only thing we can go is by what he taught. But even James implicitly, explicitly, defiantly left Adam out of the picture and reflection in the mirror he was referring to. He just left Adam out of the mirror. He just left Adam out of the reflection. James. Like my snowy little cup? It's one of the couple of little things I brought from my sister's house just to remind me. Can you imagine this harsh doctrine to my sister? And them telling her that she needs to manifest as a son of God, that there's something that she lacks in Christ? People who have challenges mentally and emotionally, being told that there's this elitism that's available for you. especially once you get old and you don't have sexual desires left. You can manifest and you can get rid of all your earthly lustful desires because you don't have any. I'm getting close. It's easy to be self-righteous and holy when you get old. That's why there's so many mean, old, religious people. Because now they judge you for everything they did when they were young. Oh, Lordy, man, my time. Please jump down real quick with me. I think we've established who James has left out of his upcoming speech. He says in verse 22, "But be ye doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own self. For if any man be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's likened to a man beholding his, for he beholdeth himself and goeth his way, beholding his natural face in a mirror. For he beholdeth himself and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was." That's verse 22 and 23. I just read you verse 18. Let me tell you, if you are seeing Adam in Christ, and you are seeing Christ in Adam, your mirror's fogged up. You know what it's fogged up with? Self-righteousness. That's what your mirror's fogged up with. But he that looketh into the perfect law of liberty and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer of the fact that he is begotten of God, not a creation. Oh, you're not a creation of God. Did you create your children? You talk about the Father's love, and yet you drag the human race from Adam to Christ as though they are one. That Jesus and Adam's the big deal and Jesus is just the footnote. Sorry, Mirror Bible, you are not going to win this one. You are not going to win the hearts and minds of people to a perception that is completely erroneous and completely away from Christ, no matter how many times you say Jesus over and over and over again. Adam is who you're really teaching. Adam is who you're teaching. And you openly admit that. I said what I had to say. Let me say this to anyone. Let me tell you, I remember when I got my Mirror Bible, I was so excited. I thought somebody agreed with the gospel. And believe me, all of the flowery bouquet of words sure seemed like it. But when I began to realize they had literally gutted the cross of changing or creating a whole new thing altogether, they literally gutted the cross. Should we say something about that? Could I be wrong about that? I could be, but we've asked and looked for, we read the material, and this is what is said in the meetings, whether it is Global Grace or Mirror Bible. We're asking you to come back home, folks, to the gospel. I'm not going to change Francois's mind. It's too much invested in this. I'm not going to change Don Keithley's mind. Too much invested in it. But we are going to teach and compare these doctrines. You say, Mike, just teach what you got to teach and forget these guys. I'm glad Paul didn't do that. why should we break our pattern of teaching away from the way Paul taught? I'm not just trying to teach you what Paul taught. I'm trying to teach you the way that Paul taught. And it was all by comparison. That's why Paul kept saying, but I say unto you. Just like he said in Romans chapter 10. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. But I say unto you. That's not the way it happened. Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord. But how shall they call on them whom they've heard? How's that going to happen? In the last verses of that chapter, by the power of comparing what was being taught at the time, is how we know that it isn't he who called, it's not the one who ran the race, it's not the one who qualified by believing or anything else. It's because of God who did the choosing, and he chose the whole human race to be born out of Christ. That word begotten means to be swelled with pregnancy. Jesus was full of the whole human race, pulled the whole human race into himself. And we were begotten during the death, burial, and resurrection, not when you believed. That's not when you were begotten. I'm glad you believed. But let's honor what Jesus honored, the scriptures. Let's honor what James taught. Let's honor what Peter taught. These guys put a lot of work and effort into this. I listened to them for what they said. I don't try to contradict them either. No matter what you believe, you're still righteous and holy and perfect, without fault and without blame in Christ. You are not a creation of God. You are begotten of God. I love you guys. Next time.